At Albert's 28th birthday banquet, someone presented him with a woman right in front of me. Abandoning my usual gentleness, I smashed my wine glass and wrecked the banquet hall. I moved out alone, carrying my luggage. Everyone said the helpless Mrs. Liu wouldn't last 3 days in her defiance before crawling back in disgrace. Albert didn't care in the slightest. An orphan girl, where could she possibly go after leaving the Liu family? Yet countless 3-day periods passed, and some even suspected I had died out there. It was only then that Albert made his first phone call, only to find the number had already been disconnected. Later, at a renowned painter's exhibition, a profile portrait left Albert utterly spellbound. He offered an astronomical sum to purchase the painting. Andrew smiled apologetically. This is the most satisfying portrait I've painted of my wife. I can't part with it. 1. Albert's 28th birthday banquet. I appeared arm in arm with Albert, dressed in the most exquisite and beautiful gown. The moment we descended the steps, Albert released my hand and left me standing alone. All eyes in the room followed Albert as he walked away. I was forgotten in the corner. People began presenting gifts to Albert one after another. With an indifferent expression, he signaled the butler to collect them. Then someone presented a stunning beauty as a gift, and all eyes turned toward me once more. Pitying, amused, mocking, every gaze held its own meaning. I've seen too many of these malicious gazes over the years. Albert's expressionless face momentarily flickered with distraction. That beauty looked too much like his deceased first love. Daring to send me a woman right in front of Grace. You all have quite the nerve. Albert smiled mockingly. The gift-giver fawned. Grace is generous. Surely she won't mind. It wasn't that I didn't mind. They'd simply calculated that I wouldn't dare to mind. An orphan girl raised by the Liu family. How dare anyone say no to the new head of the Liu family? Albert twirled the wedding band on his finger, his eyes brimming with amusement. Since Grace has agreed, take her away. Before Albert could finish his sentence, I had already strode to his side. I studied the beauty's face before me. The gift-giver certainly knew Albert's preferences well. Suddenly, I felt exhausted. I don't think I can continue maintaining Grace's dignity as Grandma advised. I gave the champagne tower behind me a gentle push. The beautifully stacked crystal collapsed with just a light touch. Broken glass and spilled wine flew everywhere, throwing the banquet into chaos. Someone exclaimed, Grace has gone mad. 2. I ruined Albert's birthday party. But he didn't seem to care much. The butler had already arranged for the guests to leave, and the servants were cleaning up the mess. The beauty was kept behind, standing quietly beside Albert. Even her personality seemed strikingly similar to Albert's first love. The comparison between the two truly made me seem like the mad one. Albert toyed with the beauty's fingers in his hand, glancing at me with indifference as he spoke. Why so angry? If you don't want to see her, I'll have her stay outside. Don't worry, I swore to Grandma that I would never take Grace's place from you. The woman beside him also spoke up to persuade me. Grace, why get so angry? A man like Albert would never have just one woman. I simply admire Albert. It won't affect your position at all. I took off the ring from my finger, placing it on the table in front of Albert. He raised an eyebrow. Here's your ring back. Albert picked up the ring and tossed it into the air. The dazzling light of the diamond ring flashed before returning to his hand. He tossed it backward to the woman behind him. Take it. Grace just threw away a ring worth millions without a second thought. Albert stood up with a cold laugh and instructed the butler. Find some etiquette teachers for Madam. I won't tolerate such disgraceful behavior again. She took a few steps, then turned back, threw the ring from her hand onto the ground. The ring rolled several times with a clatter before stopping at my feet. If you don't want the ring, then let's throw them all away. 3. Albert left with his entourage. The roar of the departing car engine was particularly conspicuous in the night. The butler sighed beside me. Madam, why must you provoke the master's anger? You know full well he holds resentment toward you. I picked up the ring at my feet and tossed it into the trash bin. Uncle Chung, you can go about your business. Don't worry about me. The housekeeper sighed and left. I went upstairs alone and changed out of the elaborate, exquisite gown. Putting on a white t-shirt, I found my suitcase and took out all the clothes that clearly belonged to me from the wardrobe, packing them inside. Other couples have conflicts and still consider divorce agreements. Yet the bond between Albert and me has faded to nothing more than a pair of matching rings. No one could have imagined that the grand wedding that once captivated the entire city was between a groom and bride who never even obtained a marriage certificate. I still remember what Albert said at our wedding. My household register can only bear Isabella's name. Grace Sue, you shouldn't have married me. But what could I do? I still married him. Married the man I'd loved for 7 years since my girlhood. I thought I might eventually move his heart. Yet in the end, I became the nominal Grace in everyone's eyes. The villa was eerily quiet as I dragged my luggage out the door. It reminded me exactly of that rainy night when Grandma first brought me home. 13-year-old Albert stood on the stairs, staring at me with cold eyes. Then he turned and walked to the kitchen without a word. She handed me a cup of warm milk. 4. I booked a flight ticket. After 6 hours in the air and 3 more on the road, I returned to that remote southern town. They say when people grow old, they yearn to return to their roots like falling leaves. But truth be told, even those without a home can feel an extraordinary longing for their hometown, even though there's not a single relative left in that hometown. I rented a small courtyard in the town. The local dialect felt both familiar and foreign. I'd left when I was young and had lived in the northern city ever since. I'd long forgotten how to speak it. Fortunately, the neighbor in the small courtyard next door was also an out-of-town resident, just having arrived before me. When I went grocery shopping that day and couldn't understand the local dialect spoken by the elderly vendor, he stepped in to help me out. The next day, I made corn pancakes to thank him for his kindness the day before. Only then did I learn he was a painter who had come here to gather inspiration. She looked like she had just graduated from college, radiating youthful enthusiasm. Far away from the people and affairs of North City. In such a simple environment, it suddenly dawned on me that I was only 25 years old. Yet in the Liu family, I had always maintained Grace's dignified facade. I always feel like I've grown old before my time. I bought flowers from the street and filled the courtyard with roses I planted myself. A small rocking chair sits beside the flower bed. Though simple, everything suits my taste perfectly. The garden of the Liu family was filled with yellow roses that Isabella loved, and an expensive piano stood in the glass conservatory. It was specially designed for her by Albert back then, and no one was allowed to touch it. Back then, Grandma wanted to have those roses uprooted. It made Albert fly into a tremendous rage. The roses are gone, and neither do I need to return to this home. No one ever mentioned the matter again. Isabella and those roses became forbidden topics in the Liu family. At 5 p.m., the courtyard gate was knocked. Andrew, wearing a hoodie with a backpack slung over his shoulder, greeted me with a radiant smile when I opened the door. "Sis, I'm going up the mountain to paint tomorrow's sunrise. Would you like to come along for some fresh air?" As he spoke, he pointed toward the mountain not far behind us. I knew that place was somewhat famous. Most tourists visiting our town came specifically for that mountain. I felt a little tempted. "Don't worry, I go camping often. I'm very experienced, and it's completely safe." Under his enthusiasm, I finally nodded in agreement. Andrew was indeed as experienced as he claimed. He immediately went back to his side and brought out another bag, carrying both sets of camping gear by himself while still holding his painting tools in hand. I wanted to help share his burden, but he firmly refused. "I'm quite strong. Carrying this little bit isn't tiring at all." On the mountain trail, we talked about the past and the future. My own past seemed rather uneventful. It was all about the Liu family, all about Albert. In the end, she became nothing more than Grace in name only for the Liu family. But Andrew was different. He always had endless new stories to tell and boundless futures to imagine. Life is all about experiences. My dream now is to become a renowned painter, so I should at least give it a try, right? Let me tell you a secret. I ran away from home. If one day you notice the yard next door is empty, it might mean my family has come to take me back. I smiled at him. Who would have thought we were both runaways? Except he still has family who would come looking for him. While my disappearance, perhaps Albert would even celebrate it. We reached the mountaintop just in time for sunset. The golden warmth of the sunlight bathed me, creating an unreal beauty. I looked down at the small town below, all enveloped in golden light, quiet and peaceful. Andrew was already bustling about, setting up the tent. I asked him, "The sunset is beautiful too. Aren't you going to paint it?" "I prefer sunrises. Each day is a fresh start, representing infinite possibilities and vitality." I sat on the stool Andrew brought out, watching him bustle about, but my mind kept circling back to his words about a new beginning. Leaving the Liu family was the bravest decision I've made in all these years. Yet I felt like a timid, cowardly fugitive. She returned to the remote small town, retreating into that little courtyard. She had never thought about what to do next. Was she really going to waste her life away in this small courtyard? I'm only 25. The future should hold endless possibilities. 6. Andrew set up the tent and then handed me food and water. He sprawled casually on the mat beside me, hands tucked behind his head, gazing at the star-studded night sky that had just emerged. "Sis, you should try looking at the stars like this. It gives you a whole different feeling." In the Liu family, I was always expected to adhere to various etiquettes, every action required to align with Grace's dignified status. The phrase I heard most often was, "Madam, this is something you mustn't do." Lying here looking at the stars, I'd never even imagined doing something like this before. But now, Andrew didn't give me time to think. He'd already reached out, grabbed my hand, and pulled me from the stool onto the mat. "Lie down quick." No longer holding back, I did as he said. Lying down, the starry sky seemed so close, as if I could reach out and touch it. Andrew and I lay like this, gazing at the vast expanse of stars, talking about everything under the sun. And in my heart, I made a decision. To bravely step forward. Running away would just be an escape. I should go meet new friends and see the vast world outside, until even if he stands before me, he no longer matters. 7. In the latter half of the night, I fell into a deep sleep. Though in a simple tent outside, I felt an unprecedented sense of peace. In the morning, I groggily stepped out of the tent to find Andrew already setting up his easel, his expression now serious. The morning sun rose slowly, gently caressing every inch of my skin. I gazed toward the direction of the sunrise. This was also the beginning of my new life. "Cease, don't move," Andrew suddenly exclaimed excitedly beside me, startling me into freezing in place. I could only watch him from the corner of my eye. Clearly, he was using me as his model. Only after he finished painting did I rub my stiff neck. Turns out being a model isn't easy either. "Let me massage it for you." "Thank you for being my model." Andrew's hand came to rest on me, his grip strong. I comfortably narrowed my eyes, enjoying his massage. All the way down the mountain, Andrew kept talking about the inspiration he just had. I looked at that painting and just thought it was quite beautiful. Beyond that, I couldn't understand much more. Andrew immediately retreated into his yard upon returning. I turned on the TV and recoiled in shock when Albert's face suddenly appeared on the screen. My hand froze mid-air as I'd intended to change the channel. I felt grateful for the decision I'd made last night. Albert frequently appeared on TV and online. I couldn't keep running away forever. In the news interview, Albert appeared unchanged. When asked about the recent rumors of marital troubles, his expression remained indifferent. My wife threw a tantrum and went out to play for a while. She'll be back soon. Everyone envies me, a helpless orphan girl, for being taken in by the Albert family's matriarch and eventually marrying Albert. What a blessing earned through good karma from a past life. Yet only those who've lived it know the truth. Being ignored by everyone, resented by Albert, bearing the hollow title of Grace while remaining rootless driftwood in the Albert household. Every year, when the yellow roses bloom, Albert has the servants cut them from the garden to fill every vase in the house. The piano in that glass conservatory is dusted daily by the servants. Isabella was dead, yet Albert kept reminding me of her existence everywhere. I heard you argued with Grace because of the assistant you've been keeping by your side recently. Albert frowned impatiently, instinctively reaching for the wedding ring between his fingers. But there was nothing there. Only then did he remember how resolute Grace had been this time, returning his ring and daring to run away in secret. He recalled the day the butler had called him in a panic, stammering that the mistress had disappeared. When he returned home, he found Grace's half of the wardrobe completely emptied. Only his suits remained, hanging forlornly inside. She was simply using her departure to force him to drive away that woman who resembled Isabella. He knew that what she cared about most were Isabella's belongings, let alone a woman who looked like Isabella. But so what? Grandma was gone, and she had no family left. Her only support was him. Ever since childhood, when wronged, she would hide away alone. Her grandmother used to spoil her. He doesn't have the patience to look for her now. Once she's suffered enough outside, she'll realize how good the Liu family is and come back eventually. So he told the butler, a lone girl, where could she possibly go after leaving the Liu family? No one is allowed to go looking for her. Notify me only when she returns. 8. Under Albert's impatience, the host quickly shifted the topic from relationships to business. When talking about work, Albert's expression visibly relaxed. It seemed Grace was someone whose mere mention would make him frown. I poured myself a glass of ice water, pulled out my laptop, and started drafting my resume. The town was mostly populated by elderly residents. It was ideal for retirement, but offered few job opportunities. If I wanted work, I'd have to venture beyond. I stretched lazily after writing until evening, then got up to prepare dinner. A simple meal of 3 dishes and a soup. Sitting at the dining table, I suddenly wondered if Andrew next door had finished his work. Does he forget to eat when painting, just like Albert does when he's working? When Grandma was still alive, Albert had suffered stomach pains several times from not eating on time. After that, whenever I had time, I would bring meals to his office. At first, his secretary would stop me outside his office, and I'd wait for 1 or 2 hours. Later, he seemed to get used to it, and would let me interrupt his work. He'd eat, and then continue working. I sighed, put on my coat, and knocked on the neighbor's gate. I hadn't heard any movement inside, and just as I was about to leave, the courtyard gate suddenly swung open. When Andrew saw it was me at the door, his previously impatient face broke into a smile. Sis, I was just painting you, and then you appear the moment I open the door. Andrew still held a paintbrush in one hand, with smudges of pigment staining his clothes and even his face, looking rather disheveled. But his smile was so dazzling that the paint merely served as embellishment. It made him seem more alive. You haven't eaten yet, have you? Would you like to come to my place for dinner? Andrew clutched his stomach and let out a belated groan upon hearing my invitation. I'm starving. You're the only one who cares about me, sis. Let me go put my pen down. In the following days, Andrew and I seemed to have reached some unspoken understanding. He came to my house for meals every day, helped clean up before leaving, and even took care of planting flowers and vegetables in the yard. Too bad I don't have a younger brother. Having one like him would have been really nice. I submitted resumes to several companies and received interview invitations. On the day I decided to leave, I got up early to say goodbye to Andrew. As soon as I opened the door, I saw several black cars parked in front of Andrew's yard. There were also several men in suits standing by the cars, looking like bodyguards. 9. I hesitated for a few minutes before stepping forward. Seeing me approach, a bodyguard reached out to block me. Don't touch her. Andrew emerged from the courtyard, the usual sunshine and cheerfulness gone from his face, replaced by a cold sternness. Andrew grabbed my hand and pulled me into his courtyard. The door slammed shut behind me. Don't follow me in. The bodyguards exchanged glances, but ultimately replied, Yes, sister. Did you come to call me for dinner? Without those bodyguards around, Andrew seemed to have regained his former cheerfulness. No, I came to say goodbye to you. Andrew's voice suddenly rose several decibels. Where are you going? I told him about submitting my resume and receiving an interview invitation. Although this place is wonderful, you said on the mountain that every day is a new beginning, full of infinite possibilities and vitality. I also want to give myself a fresh start, to live without regrets. So, sister, have you let go of that person in your heart? I looked at him with some surprise. Andrew blinked. Don't treat me like a child. A painter's eyes are quite sharp. Hearing him say it out loud made me feel somewhat embarrassed. Well, I guess I've let it go. Then, sister, where are you going to work? Beicheng. Although I had considered moving to a city farther away from Albert, I had been living in Beicheng ever since my grandmother took me in. I grew up there, studied there, and all my classmates were there too. Why should I force myself to move to an unfamiliar city for Albert's sake and gradually adapt to everything in a new place? Then I'll leave with my sister. It just so happens my family has come looking for me. 10. Who would have thought I'd end up catching a ride in Andrew's car after all? The nervousness about returning to North City and potentially facing Albert again gradually faded amidst Andrew's endless planning. Life back in North City seemed to be going smoothly. The interview went well, and I received notice to start work next week. I rented an apartment near the company again. But Andrew, after disappearing for 2 days, became my neighbor next door. I went out to take out the trash and saw workers moving furniture in and out of the next door house. At a glance, I spotted the tall, long-legged Andrew standing inside, directing the workers on where to place the furniture. What are you doing here? I wanted to surprise you, but you found out. Andrew naturally bent down and took the trash bag from my hand. I missed your cooking, so I came back to be your neighbor and mooch meals again. His appearance did bring me a pleasant surprise. Living in an unfamiliar place, having him as a neighbor added a sense of security. Then I'll cook a few dishes later to celebrate your move. For convenience, we finally decided to have hot pot at home. The spicy broth bubbled furiously as Andrew fished out a freshly cooked tripe slice and placed it in my bowl. The moment I took a bite, the spiciness made me grab my drink and gulp down several mouthfuls. So you can't handle spicy food? I thought you loved hot pot when I heard you say. It's fine. Maybe it's been too long since I last had it. Just need to get used to it again. How long has it been since I last had hot pot? I can't even remember clearly anymore. I used to love hot pot the most. When Grandma was still here, she would eat with me. She had the clear broth while I had the spicy one. Once, Albert had to work late for a meeting, and the food I brought had already gone a bit cold. It happened to be snowing lightly outside, so I suggested we go out to eat. I took him out for hot pot. Albert has always preferred light flavors, so I specifically ordered a split pot with both spicy and mild broths. But Albert frowned the entire time. On the ride home, he said, "Let's not eat that again. The smell clings to everything." I haven't had spicy hot pot since then. When you go too long without eating something, even your taste buds forget it. But thankfully, I soon found myself sweating profusely and rediscovering the joy of hot pot. After dinner, Andrew cleared the table, cleaned the kitchen, and opened the windows to air out the room. She took out the trash bag when she left. 11. Life back in Beijing was calmer than I had imagined. The media didn't discuss Grace, who hadn't been seen for a long time, and no one from the Liu family came looking for me. My existence was never worth noticing. The media, however, was more curious about the assistant Albert always kept by his side. I casually swiped through those paparazzi snapshots. It all felt bitterly ironic. Did Albert truly love Isabella that much? In the photo, Albert bends down, letting the woman adjust his tie for him. When getting into the car, he carefully shields her head with his hand. On rainy days, the woman stretches her arm high to hold an umbrella for him, yet he takes it and tilts it entirely toward her side. So this is how love for one person can be so easily transferred just because of a similar face. Isabella's news has always been well protected by Albert. Not a single photo has ever leaked. Everyone is speculating whether I've been completely neglected by Albert. If I were still with the Liu family, perhaps I'd be waiting for a husband who never comes home. But right now I'm busy finalizing the proposal and attending meetings. Busy. Andrew, I told you, you can't keep acting spoiled with me like this. I pushed away the head resting on my shoulder. Andrew then shoved my laptop aside and complained. With such a handsome guy like me standing right in front of you, why are you staring at some old man? It was the first time I'd heard someone call Albert an old man. Imagining Albert's expression if he found out made me burst into laughter. When I finally stopped laughing and looked up, I noticed Andrew's expression had turned serious. Is he the one who hurt you before? Albert from the Liu Corporation, I know him. I looked at him with some surprise. In my memory, I had never seen Andrew at the Liu residence. When I was little, my mom told me to call him Uncle. I couldn't hold back again, clutching my stomach as I collapsed onto the sofa laughing. Ha, he's only 4 years older than you. How can you call him Uncle? Ha ha ha. Andrew pinched my cheek. He looks older than his age. Albert had been involved in the company's affairs since childhood, appearing far more mature than his peers even at a young age. That does sound about right. So, you're the Grace who disappeared from the Liu family? Andrew's face suddenly loomed large before my eyes. Only then did I realize that at some point during my laughter, I'd ended up resting my head on Andrew's lap. I tried to push him away and sit up, but for once he wasn't as accommodating as before. His eyes stared straight at me, as if demanding an answer. I said. So, am I the mistress you're keeping on the side? Andrew laughed at his own words as soon as he said them. I reached out and gave him a light smack. Don't talk nonsense. And I've already left the Liu family. I've returned the ring to him. Then I'll get a lawyer. You'll divorce tomorrow. No need. We don't have a marriage certificate. I smiled bitterly. No marriage certificate meant no need for divorce either. The only bond between us turned out to be nothing more than that symbolic wedding ring. Perhaps after playing Grace for so long, even Albert forgot we never actually had a marriage certificate. Well then, why don't you help me get one? 12. Staring blankly at the freshly printed red marriage certificate in my hands, I momentarily lost myself in thought. Back then, I thought my marriage certificate would bear a photo of Albert and me. Never did I imagine the groom wouldn't be him. Last night, after Andrew's persistent pleading, I agreed to a sham marriage with him to appease his family. Andrew took the marriage certificate from my hands. I'll take it back to show my family first, otherwise my mother will keep thinking I'm lying to her. This marriage feels utterly unreal. 3 years ago, That grand wedding had all the ceremonial pomp but lacked a marriage certificate. Everything seemed like a performance of false happiness for outsiders to see. Now we have the marriage certificate, but no wedding ceremony. My heart felt at ease, perhaps because with no expectations, there could be no disappointment. Andrew took our marriage certificate back home once and returned with good news. My parents have agreed to let me hold an art exhibition. These works are my most satisfying yet. 13. A month later, Andrew's art exhibition was successfully held. I had to work overtime that day, and it was almost 8 p.m. when I got off work. While rushing to the art exhibition, I spotted a figure in the departing crowd whose back looked remarkably like Albert's. I shook my head. It must have been someone with a similar build. Entering the venue, I found many of the paintings hanging in the exhibition hall strangely familiar. Several girls walked past me excitedly, clutching art books in their hands. Hurry, hurry, Andrew seems to be right ahead. We must get his signature this time. I heard this is his final exhibition. If we miss it, there'll really be no chance to get his autograph. I followed the gazes of those girls. Sure enough, I spotted Andrew towering above the crowd. He was bowing his head, patiently signing autographs for the people in front of him. I thought this was his first art exhibition. How could it be his last? My eyes searched around until I finally noticed the introduction about Andrew at the entrance. It turned out he had already become a renowned painter, with his previous works touring nationally in exhibitions, many of which had fetched astronomical prices at auction. I stood frozen in place, suddenly hesitant to approach. The Andrew described in the introduction didn't seem like the same boy who used to act coquettishly around me. I quietly slipped away. I saw Albert standing by the roadside, frowning as he made a phone call when I came out, so I hadn't been mistaken earlier. 14. Albert kept dialing the number he would never have proactively contacted before, though he knew full well that only an automated message would respond, informing him that Grace's number was no longer in service. But he realized that apart from this phone number, he didn't know who to contact to find her. He thought of that profile he had just seen at the art exhibition. A faint unease kept flickering through his heart. In the past, what he had been most grateful for was Grace's background. She had no family, and her friends seemed pitifully few, utterly alone in this world. Only he and the Liu family could be her refuge. So he always believed that, even in death, Grace would never truly leave the Liu family. The butler had called once before, informing him that the number had been disconnected. He didn't take it seriously. Unless she dies out there, she'll come back eventually. The butler was horrified upon hearing this. Could something really have happened to the mistress? He scoffed coldly. How could that be possible? If there had really been an accident, the police would have contacted him as her husband long ago. Yet half a year had already passed. Grace never appeared again. When he saw that painting today, he felt his heart pound violently. The portrait bore a striking resemblance to Grace, yet somehow didn't quite capture her essence. The woman in the painting radiated more vitality in her eyes than the rising sun behind her. Her brilliance was almost too dazzling to behold. Grace was never like that. She was more like a stagnant pool of water that would never ripple. Even clay figurines have some temper, but Grace was made of water. Give her a gentle squeeze, and forget about temper. She couldn't muster an angry word for half a day. When bullied too harshly, she would simply hide away by herself. He had once seen her crying alone by the glass greenhouse. Hearing his footsteps, she fled back to her room like a startled kitten. What he disliked most about her was this unsophisticated demeanor. Though she was already Grace, she only dared to put on airs in public. Back at the Liu residence, she reverted to her original self. He wanted to buy that painting to hang in Grace's room, letting her see it every day until it seeped into her soul. But Andrew said, "This is the most satisfying portrait I've painted of my wife. I'm sorry, but I can't part with it." Hearing those words, he inexplicably felt a weight lift from his chest. The person in the painting is truly not Grace. Yet after leaving the exhibition, he inexplicably felt an urgent need to contact Grace. She's been angry for far too long. Surely it's time she came back. After hearing the mechanical tone repeatedly, he finally lost patience and turned to his bodyguard. "Go find out where Mrs. Liu is and bring her back immediately once you locate her." When the Liu family's bodyguards knocked on the door, Andrew was setting the table in the dining room. As soon as the door opened, several bodyguards rushed in but were stopped by him. "Who are you looking for?" The bodyguard's gaze fixed on me holding a spatula. "Madam, Albert sent us to bring you back." It had been over half a year since I last heard that form of address. For a moment, it felt like a lifetime had passed. "Who are you calling, madam?" "This is my wife." Andrew pushed several bodyguards out, and the bodyguards exchanged glances. One of them took out his phone and dialed Albert's number. "Albert, it seems the madam has gotten married." Albert's arrival was faster than I had imagined. In just a few minutes, he was already standing at the door, but his expression was terrifyingly grim. The bodyguard stepped aside, and Albert tried to push past Andrew, who was blocking his way. He couldn't move him. "Get him out of my way." Albert snapped angrily at the bodyguard. "Albert, you barged into my home trying to take my wife away. Doesn't that seem rather inappropriate?" Only then did Albert properly face Andrew. "So, the person in that painting of yours is my wife? Shouldn't I be the one demanding an explanation from you?" "What's there to explain? We're legally married. She's my lawful wife." Albert sneered coldly, his gaze locking with mine from across the distance. "Grace, have you grown some nerve? Running off to secretly marry someone behind my back? Come back now, and I'll pretend none of this ever happened." He extended a hand in my direction. "In the past, Every single time he reached out his hand, I would have grasped it without hesitation. But this time I didn't move. Albert, I've returned the ring to you. From now on, we're even. Even? The Liu family raised you all these years, and you think you can just say we're even and cut ties with me? Grace, what kind of fucking nonsense are you spouting? Albert's eyes were bloodshot, and before Andrew could stop him, he barged in. My hand was seized by him, my wrist nearly crushed in his grip. Go file for divorce with him right now. Isn't this what you wanted, to marry me? We'll register our marriage right after your divorce. With my free hand, I slapped Albert across the face. Everyone in the room froze. Albert seemed unable to comprehend what I had done for a long moment. Albert, have you lost your mind? I've already left the Liu family, and I don't want that marriage certificate anymore. Now that I'm gone, you can bring whoever you want back home. Can't we just let each other go? Why should I let you go? You were raised by the Liu family. You'll die as part of the Liu family too. Albert suddenly scooped me up in his arms, but just as we reached the doorway, he was stopped by the Song family's bodyguards emerging from the elevator. Albert, if you dare take her away today, I'll charge you with kidnapping. You don't actually think I'm incapable of protecting my own wife, do you? I was still somewhat shaken. This was a scene I had never anticipated. I thought Albert would feel relieved by my departure, that he might even be pleased when I proposed we go our separate ways. Who are you putting on this act for now? No one knew which side's bodyguard threw the first punch, but the scene quickly descended into chaos. Andrew also joined the fight, trading blows with Albert. Fortunately, Andrew came out on top, but his left cheek had been punched by Albert, and it looked quite serious. Albert, you're getting older. Fighting isn't really your thing anymore. You should try to show off less in the future. I tugged at his sleeve, afraid Albert might retaliate against him later. Albert had never been in a fight with anyone since childhood, and now he looked utterly disheveled. Several bodyguards were also injured. Help him back home, and don't come looking for me again. I dragged Andrew back into the house. Covering his face with his hands, he frowned. Honey, he really hit hard. Quick, check if my face is ruined. I pulled out the first aid kit. Stop fussing, let me put some medicine on you. Just as I leaned in, he suddenly turned his head and kissed me on the lips. This works much better than medicine. Why did you let me call you wife when Albert was here earlier? I shoved the iodine into his hand. You were the one who said we were just getting a license, not really getting married. Andrew smiled triumphantly. I just wanted to secure my legal status first, so you wouldn't be snatched away by that Liu guy. This is marriage fraud. I'll go back to working for the company in exchange for my marital freedom. If this were a sham marriage, I'd be throwing my whole life away too. If you divorce me again, I'd end up losing my wife and still be stuck working for the company forever. How tragic. I finally understood why he had called it his last exhibition. I poked the injured side of his face. Are you stupid? Well, then don't leave me. At least I can spend the second half of my life in bittersweet happiness. I nodded, and Andrew pushed his luck further. Honey, can I kiss you openly now? Before I could answer, his lips were already on mine. The situation quickly spiraled out of control. Andrew was like a child who'd finally gotten his hands on a treat. I wanted to push him away, but had already melted into a puddle. Andrew, don't. Don't be afraid. I'll be gentle. In my dazed state, I finally experienced firsthand what Andrew meant by having good stamina. 16, Andrew moved with me to a new place. He said he was afraid Albert would come to harass us again. The change of location did bring us some peace for a while, until Andrew took me to a bridal shop to choose a wedding dress. I had no idea at all about the wedding plans. From the day we got our marriage certificate, I've been preparing. When I painted that picture, I kept thinking, I must make you my most beautiful bride. Andrew handled every detail of the wedding himself. I only occasionally gave him some suggestions when his mother dragged me along. While selecting the hotel, we unexpectedly ran into Albert in the garden courtyard. I had intended to avoid him and leave, but he spotted me first. Grace, won't you come back? I'll take care of you for the rest of my life. Just like Grandma said. The Liu family home is where you grew up. Even if you don't want me anymore, would you really abandon our home too? I pulled my hand from his grasp. I've been with the Liu family for so many years, yet you never treated me as family. Now I have a new family, and I only hope you won't disturb me in the future. Andrew's parents both like me very much, especially when they learned that my parents passed away early and I had no other relatives left in the world. Mrs. Song hugged me and cried with heartfelt sympathy. She said she would be my mother from then on. I really like this home Andrew has given me. It's a place where I truly belong. In the Liu family, my only relative was Grandma. With Grandma gone, there's nothing left to hold me there. I saw Andrew come out and ran toward him, waving. He helped me tighten my coat, holding me close as he turned to speak with the hotel manager beside us about the arrangements. Albert stood in place, his gaze following my retreating figure. But that figure never once looked back. Extra. Albert's perspective. I've always prided myself on never misjudging anyone in all my years in the business world. Yet I never imagined I'd failed to understand Grace, the person closest to me. I thought she had no one to rely on and could be easily controlled. But after going out just once, she suddenly grew bold. Back then, Grandma insisted we get married, so I agreed verbally, but only held a wedding ceremony to show her. I deliberately avoided registering our marriage, and she endured it silently, never even complaining to Grandma. I intentionally placed Isabella's favorite yellow roses in front of her, watching her face turn pale, finally understanding what bothered her. So when that woman who resembled Isabella appeared before me, I agreed without hesitation. The gift giver flattered. Grace is generous. She surely won't take offense. I just didn't expect her to lose her temper and throw away our wedding ring. I always thought she was just a runaway child, but I never realized she had already grown up without my noticing. I was no longer her sole support. She had a job, new friends, even a marriage. I waited downstairs for the bodyguard to bring her back, only to hear that she had married. I nearly dropped my phone. She said she wanted to settle accounts with me, as if she wanted to cut all ties with me for life and become strangers. In my agitation, I threw the first punch. But to my surprise, I couldn't even beat that damn kid. I remember how annoying he was as a child, though I'm only a few years older. He actually called me uncle. Now that I'm grown up, I find it even more detestable. Yet when Grace saw he was hurt, her eyes were filled with concern. Perhaps she didn't even realize it herself. Her gaze held only that wretched boy, while turning toward me with nothing but wariness. Suddenly, I felt as if I'd lost something I might never recover. Their wedding invitation arrived in my hands, the couple's smiling faces in the photo particularly stinging to my eyes. We too had once held a grand wedding ceremony. Only I was so perfunctory that I couldn't even be bothered to take a photo with her. All the arrangements were left to the butler, while I remained detached, as if merely a guest attending that wedding. She must have been disappointed with that wedding, wasn't she? All these years I grew accustomed to her presence by my side, took her devotion for granted, always assuming she would stay forever. Only now do I realize that some people, once lost, will never belong to me again. She has forsaken the Liu family, and in doing so, she has forever left me behind in it. The end.